CQ requires an overall repertoire of adaptive capabilities. These capabilities are CQ drive, CQ knowledge, CQ strategy, and CQ action. These four factors interact symbiotically. Today I want to talk about CQ knowledge. This factor refers to the knowledge dimension of cultural intelligence. It refers to one's level of understanding about culture and culture's role in shaping the way to do business and interact with others across cultural context. Your cognitive CQ or knowledge is based upon the degree to which you understand the idea of culture and how it shapes the way you think and behave. It also includes your overall understanding of the ways that cultures vary from one context to the next. The acquisition of knowledge is not necessarily gained by pouring information of another culture into your storehouse. Knowledge must be gained as you learn what kinds of questions to ask and what to look for in your own culture as well as the other culture. We often display a universal tendency to ignore the reality of our own cultural identity as though it is only the other culture that is being called into question. The place to begin is to become aware of the behaviors and actions of our culture, and as we appreciate our culture, we grant legitimacy to the culture of others. Harry Truman once said, "There is nothing new in the world except the history we don't know." When time is taken to study our own culture, we discover a vastness that is beyond comprehension. Our own culture is the result of history, religion, geography, and a host of other contributors that leave us with a uniquely American culture. So likewise, every other culture is comprised of factors that suggest that if we are to effectively interact with others, we must learn why people behave the way they do. How often do we hear the expression by cross-cultural workers, "I'm not sure culture has a whole lot to do with it," or "I think this culture card is overplayed"? This is a very simplistic way of dismissing other people's culture. This attitude comes from our frustration in the attempt to define culture. If we can't adequately define what culture is or what it's not, then we resort to cultural dissonance and the whole endeavor is shipwrecked. We cannot escape culture. Defining culture is much like defining air. We know what it is. We live in it. It lives in us. We can't see it, but it's there just the same. And like air, technical definitions of culture abound, but they don't necessarily move us any closer to understanding what it really is and how it affects us. We simply can't become knowledgeable about a people's culture until we at least arrive at some working definition of culture. So, here are a few helpful definitions. Culture is the artificial, secondary environment superimposed on the natural. Richard Niebuhr. Quote, "Culture is a pattern of thinking, feeling, and reacting to various situations and actions," close quote, A.L. Kroeber. Quote, "Culture is the shared understanding people use within a society to align their actions. While culture is defined, created, and transmitted through interaction, it is not interaction itself, but the content, meanings, and topics of interaction," so says Howard Becker. Another, quote, "Culture is the collective programming of the mind that distinguishes the members of one group from another. It is the software behind how we operate." Gert Hofstede. Open quote, "Culture is the way a group of people solves problems and reconciles dilemmas." Edgar Schein. And finally, cultures are comprised of webs of significance that people spin and in which they themselves are suspended. Clifford Geertz. The task before us then is to acquire a sufficient amount of knowledge because it is indispensable in working with others. Leaders with high CQ knowledge have a rich, well-organized understanding of culture and how it affects the way people think and behave. They possess a repertoire of knowledge in knowing how cultures are alike and different, and they understand how culture shapes behavior. Thank you.